Welcome to Salisbury University on the Air, a program highlighting the activities and the people of the campus. My name is Susan Purnell. From lectures and panel discussions to an exhibit and film screening, Salisbury University commemorates African American History Month in February. Here to tell us about those events and more is Dr. April Logan, Assistant Professor of English and Chair of SU's African American History Month Committee. So welcome again, April.
Oh, thank you for having me, Susan. It's nice to see you.
So good to see you again.
Yes.
So we're here to talk about African American History Month, which is February.
Yep, right.
And tell me a little bit about how it came about and when it started.
So African American History Month was started in 1926 with Carter G. Woodson's visionary Black History Week. And basically from that point on, and as you know, a lot of people consider Carter G. Woodson to be the father of African American history. And what happened is over time there was so much interest in it. Political leaders, community members, and activists really agitated for it to be something more. And then finally in 1986, the Congress passed a law making it African American History Month. And the reason Carter G. Woodson picked February was sort of in honor of two key figures in that history, Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. And also, just to give a little bit more context, it's sort of in the vein of other what we call Heritage Months, Women's History Month, Native American History Month, which is just to say that even though we know these groups, women, Latinos are a significant part of American history, sometimes there's not enough attention given throughout the year, so we like to highlight it during these months.
Just focus on that particular history. That's great. Now, SU is hosting a lot of events. And I know usually there is you've been a busy girl because usually they pick a particular topic. What's this year's theme?
So this year's theme, we always turn to the Association for African American Life and History for our theme. And this year's theme is the crisis in Black education. And really, the reason we picked that theme because there's been a lot of provocative topics in our nation. For example, law enforcement, declining college enrollments, the increase in charter schools, and a lot of the divisive politics. And we really feel like this year's theme and our program really is going to provide some answers that are, to questions that a lot of these issues have raised in people's minds. And so that's why I think it's really great. And also, when you think about it, once upon a time it was illegal to teach slaves how to read and write in history.
I know. It's even hard to
It is hard
think
to
about.
imagine.
I can't imagine.
What I want to say about our month is that the story of African American education is not only heartbreaking, but really inspiring. And in fact, SU, the city of Salisbury, and SU have played really commendable roles in that history, and that's going to be a big part of the month too. So it's still a real celebration, as well as an opportunity for reflection and problem solving. So it's really going to be great.
It's great. The keynote address is by a woman called Deborah Salahuddin.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about her.
Actually, Deborah is a native of Salisbury, and she actually is a graduate of Wacomico High School. So it's a bit of a homecoming for her. And right now, she's a museum specialist with the recently opened Smithsonian Museum of African American History and Culture.
That was just last month, wasn't it?
Well, actually, it just opened in September of last year, but it's basically been sold out because there was so much interest in it. So she's basically going to come and talk to us about that and just a little bit more about her background. Before, she was a consultant with the Reginald F. Lewis Museum and also one of the founding directors of Baltimore's Great Blacks and Wax Museum, which many of us are familiar with.
Yes. Oh, well, that'll be really interesting. What in particular do you think she'll be speaking on?
I think she's going to talk about the historical significance of the Smithsonian Museum of African American History and Culture, and also just about how that museum and African American history museums in general, the important role that they play as sort of cross-cultural bridges that can help us sort of, not only avert social conflict, but also sort of serve as a bridge and, address some of these issues. So just the significance of not only that museum in particular, but a lot of the other African American History Month museums.
Right. When and where will she be speaking?
So she's going to be speaking Thursday, February 9th. This is one of the first events, just in a few weeks, from 7 to 9 p.m. in the Wacomico room.
Now, my favorite part is always the soul food dinner.
Right, right. A lot of people love
And
that.
they're going to have that again this year, right?
Yes.
And I think there's some special entertainment.
Yes, Bernard Sweetney, the jazz quartet's going to join us again, which is always fabulous, and so he'll be there. And I think, as you know, he's performed in the past with Donny Hathaway, Roberta Flack, and Shirley Horn. So it's just an amazing, opportunity to hear some really world-class music.
Oh, well, that'll be great. And also, SU's Edward H. Knabb Research Center for Delmarva History and Culture, I have to look down because that's a very long name of a place, is presenting a special event during African American History Month with a Dr. Aston Gonzalez, who is a local history teacher. Is that right?
Yes, he's an assistant professor in the Department of History at SU. He's one of my colleagues. He's a wonderful person, and he's going to be doing just a fascinating workshop about how African Americans can sort of trace their genealogy. That's becoming very popular, and they can do that through online sources, archives, and other means. And so it's really sort of going to be a bit of a talk, but really a workshop, sort of hands-on to teach people how to do this.
How to check out their genealogy.
Yeah, and also talking about what are some of the common obstacles that African Americans encounter when attempting to reconstruct their histories. And he's just a fabulous educator, a warm person, so I really encourage people to come out for that workshop. And of course, the bonus is that you do get to come to the Gary Academic Commons because it will because it will be in a Knabb Center classroom.
Okay.
On Monday, February 13th.
February 13th is this one. Okay, great. I don't know how you're going to remember all these dates because there's so much going on. On February 22nd, SU is hosting a screening of the documentary The Lottery, which if I researched this correctly is something about inner city charter schools.
Yes.
Why is that an important and timely topic at this point?
Well, again, if you've been watching the news, many African-American families across this country, and especially in urban areas, have increasingly turned to homeschooling, but also to charter schools, because in some ways they feel that the public school system is failing their children. So they see the charter schools and homeschooling as an alternative. And I think with this documentary and the discussion that we'll have with it, and we have 2 other panel discussions, will help us learn more about charter schools. I'm sure there's probably some possible shortcomings with charter schools, but there's also a lot of promise with charter schools. So we're really going to be looking at charter schools, how they operate, and just sort of educating ourselves and looking at their role in sort of African American education historically, but also in the present. And this film, The Lottery, and the discussion will help us do some of that.
And when and where will the lottery be shown?
That will be Wednesday, February 22nd in Fulton Hall 111.
Fulton,
Yes, Fulton Hall 111, and so that's a little bit different, from 7 to 9:30 p.m. And I'm sorry.
No, after the showing, will they have a discussion, a led discussion?
Yes, we will have a discussion, which will be nice. We can reflect on the film and think about, what other topics are raised by it. And I believe a colleague, again, from the Seidel School of Education is going to facilitate that conversation, one of the professors from the Seidel School of Education. I think Shanisha Clark, but it might be another professor. But yes, it is going to be followed by a facilitated discussion.
As part of this year's commemoration, a panel called Addressing the Crisis in Black Education.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
And this is sort of a scholar. It's gonna be an amazing panel with experts from diverse fields. This is going to be a fabulous community event. I just want to say that.
Not just people from SU?
Not just people from SU, because I think that the people who are speaking, some of them, many of them are professors, but we also have people from outside academia, but really shedding a light on this issue. And so when I talk about some of the panelists, you'll see why I really think everyone should really come out. So one of the panelists is Nalaway Rooks. She's an associate professor of Africana Studies and Feminist and Gender and Sexuality Studies at Cornell University. And a book coming out this year that she wrote is called Cutting School. It's a fascinating title, Apartheid Education in the Big Business of Unmaking Public Education. Another person that we have is a close friend of mine named Christina Collins. She's the education director with AFT New York, but she also has a doctorate in history.
What's AFT?
The American Federation of Teachers. Okay. So she does some work with labor unions, but of course a lot of public schools have unions, so she can kind of look at it at both ends from that perspective. And she wrote a book called Ethnically Qualified, Race, Merit, and the Selection of Urban Teachers from 1920 to 1980. So she has a real expertise with that. Then we also have SU's Anjali Pandey, who is an internationally recognized scholar in applied linguistics. She's in my department, and she also does. She's won some phenomenal grants through SU, working with public school teachers, and she recently published a book called about monolingualism and linguistics in popular fiction. And then lastly, we have Brandy Tyrell, who's an assistant professor of creative arts, assistant professor in the Seidel School of Education, the teacher education department in particular, and she's the director of the Eastern Shore Writing Project, among other things. So a real gangbusters.
Oh my
panel.
gosh, a powerful panel
it's
to lead that discussion. And when and where will they be?
And that's Thursday, February 23rd from 7 to 9 p.m. And that's in the Wacomico room.
In the back of the Wacomico
room.
In the old room.
Okay. That's a good way to say it.
And then I think the students are going to have a chance with a panel called Student Perspectives on Black Education on Tuesday, February 28th. Who are some of the students that are going to be taking part in this?
So some of the students are Makira Saunders, Donovan Mack, Sierra Sherman, Amani Boyer, and Brian Anderson. And I wanted to look at
current students.
They're current students, and I wanted to look at their names because I have had almost all of these students in my classes. I've worked closely with them, and they are just some of SU's best and brightest. They're really wonderful young men and women who are going to be leading this panel.
And what are some of the topics that they want to discuss?
So I think this is sort of like, a bird's eye view. And sometimes students, even though we're having the other events, don't always feel comfortable. But to come to an event with their peers, we think is really going to be attractive.
They might feel more open and honest, ability to express themselves with their peers than with some of these more
sometimes they
big players.
Right. Sometimes they want to sort of be as students when in those contexts. So some of the things they're going to talk about are their experiences with K through 12 education in private and public schools, challenges African Americans face when trying to apply to college, and SU's successful efforts to address diversity and inclusion. And I think one of the aims that we have for that panel, the students and all of us who are on the African American History Month Planning Committee, is to sort of have a brainstorming session with attendees about how SU students might play an active role in helping to improve access to quality education in their communities. So it's really going to be a positive, eye-opening discussion, I think.
And where will that take place?
That's going to be Tuesday, February 28th. From 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. in the Wacomico room.
Back in the Wacomico room. Okay. All of these events in February, except for the dinner, are free.
Yes.
Right? And open to the public?
Yes. Admission to everything is free with the exception of the soul food dinner. So SU's program is very accessible and affordable way to learn about African American History Month and culture. And even as far as the soul food dinner, I think it's roughly $13 for adults, and for children 6 and unders, it's around $8. But again, you're not just getting, this wonderful soul food dinner, which is, sort of representative of African American history and culture, but the entertainment, the jazz.
Right. That's a very inexpensive evening. And believe me, it's all you can eat and it's fabulous. So that's something you just shouldn't miss. Looking beyond February, SU also has several African American History Month related events later in the semester. So what can you tell us about the Multicultural Student Leadership Summit on Saturday, March 4th?
So this is an annual event hosted by the Office of Multicultural Student Services, and it's a great opportunity for multicultural student, high school, and college student leaders to learn great strategies to network amongst themselves, but also learn strategies for applying and attending college, navigating the job market, but also being successful in the 21st century workplace.
Now, who can attend that? Anyone?
Anyone can, yes. SU students and non-SU students can attend. However, I should note that non-SU students, there is a fee of $25.
Okay, so if you're not a student here, $25, but I'm sure you'll get your money's worth.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's a very popular event.
Would you recommend it for high schoolers?
Yes. Yeah, just to emphasize again, it's for high school and college students. So it's, taking at it from both ends, so to speak.
Okay. And finally, I think there's another special performance in April.
Yes.
April, what is it?
It's the African heritage dancers and drummers, and they will provide a brief overview of the historical and cultural context of specific African American music forms. And the reason they're going to provide this overview is so that then the audience can fully experience and appreciate some of the things that they're doing with rhythmic patterns and movement during their dance. And so again, thinking about the theme of this month, yes, it's called the Crisis in Black Education, but we're really thinking about the history of African American education in its broadest sense.
Well, I remember learning that the symbol in China for crisis is opportunity.
Oh,
and it looks
that's
like
lovely.
this is an opportunity
Yes, that's a perfect
for
way of
people
saying
to
it.
really
I love that.
learn a lot about what's happened before and work out what can happen in the future.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's great,
So
Susan.
great to talk to you, as
Yeah,
always.
nice to
You're
talk to you, too.
a font
Thank
of
you.
knowledge. And I hope everyone will come to some of these events that we've discussed. I promise you the dinner is amazing. and all of the discussions should be really eye-opening. So thank you so much for sharing it with us today.
Yes, thank you. And again, can I just say, if people want more information, feel free to go to Salisbury University's website. If you missed some of the dates or events, all the information is there as well.
I'm sure they weren't all taking notes. It's a very good point.
Okay.
Go to the website.
Yes.
Absolutely. And thanks again.
Thank you
for being here. And now, here's a look at these and other activities scheduled on the campus in February. SU's NAB Center also celebrates African American History Month and beyond with a special exhibit. Here to tell us about that is curator Janie Kreines. So welcome, Janie.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
It's so good to have you here. You're the first curator of the NAB Center, and I think people are probably going to be pretty curious about where you came from. Give us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a new position for the NAB Center, so I'm really happy to be able to jump in and fill this position. I just started on May 11th, so it's been a whirlwind of coming in and moving everything from the old location to the new building and setting up some new exhibits. But I grew up in Northern Virginia and actually vacationed a lot in Chincoteague as a kid.
Really?
Yeah, so it's really exciting to be in this area and be so close to Chincoteague. So a lot of old memories definitely come back.
That's great.
Yeah,
so your background in this industry is?
I was actually a high school history teacher for 6 years. I taught 9th and 12th grade, and then I decided to get my master's in museum studies. And ended up being the registrar and collections manager for the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley in Winchester, Virginia, and then the York County History Center in York, Pennsylvania, before coming here to Salisbury.
Oh, I bet we are so lucky to have you
I'm
with that
happy
kind
to
of
be
experience.
here. So
That's great.
Thank you.
Now, the new exhibit is located in the first floor lobby of the Patricia Argyrieri Academic Commons.
Yes.
Tell me, what is it titled?
So this new exhibit is called When Communities Come Together, African American Education on the Eastern Shore. And when we were putting this exhibit together, titles are always a difficult thing to kind of come up with. But there's a thread that really goes through this exhibit and the different sections of the commitment and the determination of the communities to create a better education for their children. So we thought that was a great title and really expresses what's going on in this exhibit.
What was the inspiration for it?
We actually had a former graduate assistant at the NAB Center named Artura Jackson, and she was a member of the African American History Month Committee. And when they started talking about this year's theme of the crisis in Black education, she came to me and said, I really want to do an exhibit before I graduate in December, and I'd like to do it about African American education on the Eastern Shore. And I thought it was a great idea, so we reached out to the Public Humanities Committee and had another graduate assistant, Matt Lewis, come on board, and we all collaborated and put this exhibit together.
So tell me some examples of things that are in the exhibit. If we come to see, what are we going to see?
Yeah, there are a lot of photographs, newspaper articles, magazine articles, and furniture from the NAB collection. We really created a school room based on the Rosenwald schools. So you'll see how we set it up with windows that reflect kind of the architecture of Rosenwald schools, and recreated a classroom while you go through the exhibit.
Did all of this come out of the NAB Center collection?
Most of it comes from the archival and artifact collection at the NAB Center. We do have some photographs that we got from other institutions like the University of Virginia, the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, and Fisk University.
So it's been going on for a while now. How long will it last?
Yes, we opened on January 3rd, but this will be open until May 31st. So we're hoping the public will come and see it, but also it's going to be open so professors can use it in their class assignments and projects as well.
That's a great idea. And what are the hours?
Well, this is open during regular academic common building hours, which do vary. So we do suggest if you want to come and see the exhibit that you get on the library website and check out the hours, or give us a call at the NAB Center and we can help you figure out when would be the best time to come and see it.
There's also a film screening associated with the current exhibit, is that right?
Yes.
And what's that?
We are having a reception for this exhibit on March 9th from 6 to 7, and following that reception, we're doing a film screening, a documentary about Julius Rosenwald, and it will be from 7 to 9 p.m. on March 9th. So it talks about his partnership with Booker T. Washington and how they created a fund to build almost 5,000 schools for African American children in the South.
Who was he?
He was actually one of the co-founders of Sears and Roebuck, and he met Booker T. Washington in the early 1900s, and they just kind of partnered up and created this fund through the Tuskegee Institute, and it was an amazing fund that not only created schools, but colleges, museums, libraries, etc. So he was an amazing man who really helped in a lot of different ways.
Well, that's A good one.
Yes,
I always
absolutely.
learn something on this show. Now, you mentioned that you just moved. Where in the building is the actual exhibit?
So this exhibit is on the first floor of the
Right.
Academic Commons, but the NAB Center is actually located on the fourth floor.
Okay.
And we have other exhibits on the fourth floor as well, but we have a state-of-the-art facility now with a large reading room, an amazing view of Henson Lawn. So if any students want to come up there, not only to use our resources, but to have a quiet place to study, we really encourage anyone to come and visit us, as well as patrons. But we have a state-of-the-art storage space for our archival material, as well as our artifact material. So it's an amazing new space.
Wow, so much more space than you had before.
Yes,
It's got to be
absolutely.
exciting. What are some of the other exhibits that are currently there?
We have two exhibits on the fourth floor. One of them is called Delmarva, People, Place, and Time, and it gives a brief overview of the history of Delmarva, talking about early settlement, land and water influences on the region, family history. We have a 19th century room from a home, military history, and university archives. And that will be up for a few years, a few minor changes here and there, but that gives people an idea of what we have in our collection at the NAB Center. The other exhibit right now is Leland, Starnes in the Salisbury State Theater, which talks about the Salisbury Theater program in the 1970s. So it's really exciting. We have an amazing collection in the University Archives from Mary Starnes, including production posters, photographs, scripts, design sets. It's really awesome.
And Leland Starnes was a professor here, correct?
Yes, and
Okay.
the director of the theater program.
Okay, for
Yes.
many years. Am
Yes,
I right?
he was here through the 70s, and unfortunately he passed away in 79. But Mary Starnes collected all of his stuff from the productions that he did and then donated it to the NAB Center.
Oh,
so we're
that's
really lucky to have all of
Wonderful.
that.
Yes. And I think I was invited to a reception as well. Is that right?
And we'll also be having a reception for the Leland Starnes exhibit on February 9th from 6 to 8 p.m. So we hope a lot of people will come to that exhibit as well and share their stories. We've reached out to a lot of alumni who are attending during that time period, but we also want current students and the public to come and enjoy that exhibit as well.
And that will be right there in the NAB Center.
Yes,
Okay,
fourth
good.
floor. Come and
Fourth
see us.
floor. Okay, great. Yes. Now, getting into the NAB Center, is it free?
Yes, all of the exhibits on the first floor, the fourth floor, that's all free and open to the public.
So people really need to take advantage of this.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
a jewel. We have the Ward Museum, which is wonderful, but this is more about people than about our environment and all the wild
Yes.
fowl that you get to see over there. This is about us.
Yes,
and
and
our
these
history.
exhibits will change. The two changing exhibits, one on the fourth and first floor, they will change a couple times a year. So we hope people keep coming back and visiting us and see what else we have to offer for everybody.
Are you finding there are some people coming through that you hadn't seen before?
Oh yeah,
A lot of
absolutely.
new people? Good.
Yes, and we've had the exhibits up on the marquee sign and people coming in who are not associated with the university. So we're really excited. People coming in, especially for the first floor exhibit, who attended some of the Rosenwald schools and are sharing their stories with us as they walk through. So it's been a really great experience.
Just seeing the building is an experience.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
then when you have
It's an amazing building.
cherry on top is the NAB Center right
Yes,
in there. Yeah, that's
yes.
great. Janie, it's been so great to talk to you today, and I can't wait for you to have the opportunity to share these new exhibits and the new Patricia Argyrieri Commons with everybody. So thanks again for being here.
Thanks for having me, Susan.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I'd like to thank my guests, April Logan, Assistant Professor of English and Chair of SU's African American History Month Committee, and Janie Kreines, Curator for the Edward H. Knabb Research Center for Delmarva History and Culture. I hope many of you will enjoy this year's African American History Month events. I'm Susan Purnell. This has been Salisbury University on the Air. Thank you for watching.